Hey everyone, welcome back to Abiding Trails. Really glad you're walking this trail with me today, whether you're driving to work, out with your dog, or maybe even an actual trail right now. I'm not a pastor or a theologian, just someone who loves Jesus, loves the outdoors, and happens to share my life with 8 pitbulls who teach me something new about biblical stewardship every single day. Last week, we talked about strength under control. This week, I want to take that conversation outside, literally. Because if you've spent any real time on the trail with a powerful dog, you already know a truth that applies to way more than just hiking. Structure creates freedom, not rules for the sake of rules, not control for the sake of control, but the kind of intentional boundaries that make real adventure possible. Grab your coffee and let's walk this trail together. If you've ever taken a bully breed on a serious trail, not just a neighborhood walk, but real terrain with drop offs, narrow paths, or challenging conditions, you learn something very quickly. Just letting them run free because they love it is not trail wisdom. It's trail chaos waiting to happen. We took our senior dog Deimos to the Grand Canyon a few years back. And if you've ever stood at that rim with a powerful dog, let me paint you a picture. You're looking down at one of the most breathtaking and honestly humbling things you'll ever see in your life. The scale is almost impossible to process. It's massive, it's beautiful, and it's completely unforgiving. And you've got a pit bull beside you who has absolutely no concept what a 6,000-foot drop looks like. In that moment, you realize very quickly that sentiment. He loves being free, let him explore, could cost you your dog's life. The structure we'd built with Deimos, his heel command, his recall, his trust in our leadership, wasn't limiting his Grand Canyon experience. It was what made bringing him there possible in the first place. That experience taught me something I carry everywhere now. Boundaries weren't limiting the adventure, they were what made the adventure possible. Real freedom on the trail doesn't come from no rules. It comes from the right rules applied consistently long before you ever leave the trailhead. And I think that's exactly what God was showing us in 1 Corinthians 14:33 when he said he is not a God of confusion but of peace. His order isn't designed to limit us. It's designed to protect us so we can actually live the life he created us for. Here's something every experienced outdoorsman knows that casual hikers often learn the hard way. You don't just grab your dog and head into the wilderness on a whim. And nowhere is this more critical than desert trail hiking. When we took Deimos to the Grand Canyon, water wasn't just a comfort item we threw in the pack as an afterthought. Water in desert heat on the trail is a life or death situation. And I mean that completely literally. The National Park Service warns hikers every year about heat related illness and death on Grand Canyon trails. The combination of intense desert heat, direct sun exposure, physical exertion, and altitude changes creates conditions that can take even the most experienced hikers down faster than they would expect. Now, add to that a dog with that equation. Dogs can't sweat like we do. They regulate heat through panting, which actually accelerates dehydration. A bully breed working harder on a desert trail in the summer heat can go from fine to heat stroke in a frighteningly short window. So before we ever put one paw on that trail with Deimos, we were calculating water needs based on trail length and temperature, identifying shade points along the route, and knowing exactly when to turn back, regardless of how much trail was left. That preparation wasn't excessive caution. That was the difference between bringing your dog home and not bringing our dog home. And here's the spiritual truth that hit me standing there at the trailhead. Biblical stewardship isn't reactive, it's prepared. Proverbs 27:12 says, "The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it." Trail prep with your dog is not paranoia, it's prudence. It's what love actually looks like when the stakes are real. I think about this every morning when I manage our 8 dogs in their separate groups. Deimos and Atlas together, they're both steady, experienced. Lean with her 4 pups, Gaia on her own right now because she needs that space. People who don't understand our situation might look at that structure and think something's wrong. But that daily routine is our trail prep. It's the preparation that keeps everyone safe, prevents conflict, and creates the kind of peace that makes our home manageable instead of chaotic. We've had dogs get into some serious fights before, Atlas and Titan, Lilene and Deimos. Those experiences taught us the same thing the desert teaches every serious outdoorsman. Preparation isn't optional when you're responsible for powerful animals. Biblical stewardship is not reactive, it's prepared. Let me address something directly because I know some of you are thinking it. Doesn't all this structure and boundaries and preparation take the fun out of it? Doesn't it make everything feel rigid and controlled? Here's what I've learned from the trail. When your dog is in perfect heel position on a challenging path, not because you're forcing it, but because you've built that relationship through consistent leadership, something remarkable happens. You can take them places you never could otherwise. Narrow ridge lines, crowded trailheads, the rim of the Grand Canyon. The structure doesn't limit where you can go, it expands it. Deimos at the Grand Canyon wasn't just a dog on a leash being dragged around. He was a well led, trusted companion experiencing one of the most incredible places on earth because the structure we'd built with him made it possible to bring him there safely. A dog with no trail discipline stays home or stays on a short leash in a parking lot. A dog with solid structure goes everywhere with you. The same principle applies to every area of leadership. Keeping Atlas and Titan separated isn't punishing either of them, it's protecting both of them. That boundary is an act of love, not restriction. And that's exactly what God's boundaries look like in our lives. His structure isn't punishment, it's the trail framework that makes the real adventure possible. Quick pause here before we keep going. If this message of staying steady and leading through structure on the trail, at home, and with your dogs resonates with you, that's exactly why I designated the Saved Mountain Sunset Bundle. It's the hat and tee I embroider right here in my shop for men who understand that real leadership requires staying steady when others would quit. It's outdoor gear for men who live this way. $55 for both pieces together. Links in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the trail. Every serious outdoorsman has had this moment. You're on the trail, your dog is fired up, ready to keep going. The view ahead looks incredible, but the conditions are changing, and your gut is telling you to turn back. Sentiment says, keep going. Structure says, turn back now. The man who listens to structure gets home safely. The man who listens to sentiment becomes a search and rescue story. Standing at the Grand Canyon with Deimos, there was a moment when we had to make exactly that kind of call. The temperature was climbing, the sun was direct, and Deimos was showing early signs of working hard in the heat. We could have pushed further, the views ahead were incredible. But faithful stewardship said, turn back now. Not because we were afraid, because we were responsible. We got Deimos to shade, gave him water, let him rest. He was completely fine. But that decision required choosing structure over sentiment in a moment when sentiment was really tempting. This is where biblical leadership gets real, because leading through structure instead of sentiment means you're going to make decisions that don't always feel good, separating dogs who've had conflicts, turning back when conditions change, saying no when yes would be easier. But that's what faithful stewardship actually looks like. Not the Instagram version where everything is beautiful and peaceful. The real version where love sometimes looks like a hard boundary and wisdom sometimes looks like turning back. God doesn't call us to comfortable leadership. He calls us to faithful leadership. And faithful leadership always chooses what's right over what's easy. Here's where I want to leave you today. Pick one area this week, your morning trail routine, your dog structure, your household leadership, and add just a little more intentional preparation. Not rigidity, not control. Just faithful preparation that creates the kind of peace that makes real freedom possible. Because the men who lead best aren't the ones who let everything run wild and hope for the best. They're the ones who show up prepared, maintain structure consistently, and make the hard calls when it matters. That's the kind of leader your dog needs, your family needs, and honestly, the trail needs. Think about Deimos at the Grand Canyon. The structure we'd built with him didn't take away his experience, it gave him access to one of the most magnificent places on earth. That's what faithful preparation and consistent leadership produces. Not restriction, access. Not limitation, adventure. Not control, freedom. Thanks for walking this trail with me today. If this encouraged you, share it with one man who needs to hear it. And don't forget our free ebook, Faithful Companions, is linked in the show notes. It's the practical foundation for everything we talked about here regarding biblical bully breed stewardship. Until next time, keep abiding, keep leading, and keep your structure steady so your freedom can flourish.